And so it has, some of the hardware is slightly different, but it all functions the same. It just looks slightly different. Well, except for this one. This one does have a newer controller, I'd say that. On the Redworks controller down here, that controller in the LA facility had an older version that was a smaller box. So it looks like it's just a square. To where this one's a rectangle, it actually has more ports on it for the light. That's the only difference. They all, to debug it, it all is the exact same thing. There's nothing actually different other than it has more ports and it looks newer. But and I say that there's a couple, there's two versions of it. There is a difference on the brand new ones, that the power, how they're powered is slightly different. Instead of just plug it in to a plug strip, they require a 24 volt power supply. But functionally, they still are the exact same thing. For debugging and all that, they're the same.
Can you explain the functions on it? On the back, they have a knob that it's a light. It doesn't say exactly what it is.
Oh, the two switches?
Yes.
Those are just left default because they don't use those anymore. Okay. They used to, the old versions used to daisy chain. So you have one network cable come plug to the first one, and then they'll cascade additional controllers off of that.
And these versions do not?
And we don't do that anymore. They stopped doing that, 5 years ago or so, but they never took that functionality off the board. So on the hardware, we have, before we got interrupted, we were talking about the RTS box. That RTS box is the interface for this to talk to the servers. So this talks, the scanner talks in via serial connection, a little DB9 connection, and it comes into this little silver box right here. That's the RTS. And all that box is for is to take the information from the scanner and send it to the server. So that Kofi then can see whatever you guys scan and then send it and make a decision and send it back to the station.
What do the lights indicate on that piece? There's a middle light that blinks. Is there a default where it says that?
The blinking is it's communicating. So as you scan something, you should be able to see the light. The one that's blinking right now, the red one, is just that it has Ethernet connection, I believe. But each one will say RX and TX, and the RX and TX is transmit receive, and those lights should blink every time data gets sent.
One light or both lights?
Well, the transmit, you'll see transmit when it transmits, you'll see it blink, and receive when it blinks, but they're both the same light.
So if that's faulted in any way, will it show me?
Not necessarily on the light. Now, if you lose communication, so if we went down here, and you saw, you see, all the lights go out except for the power light. The yellow is the power. And so one of the lights says that it's got network connection. One says that it's got data transmitting.
I just can't hear it.
You can't hear. Oh, I know, it's hard.
Yeah.
And masks, I hate these masks because you can't see my lips moving, so you don't know, hey, is he talking or not? So with all these devices that you see in here, all of them are what we call dumb. They do not store Kofi information. All they do is there are a means to transmit the information to the tag sewer or receive it from the scanner. That's all they do. So if you have a problem with the station,
I have another question on that. Do we have to if we want to change that out, do we have to upload an IP address to swap that?
Yes,
That one has its own special IP address?
yes. This device here, the RTS, the Redworks LC, and the Backoff bus coupler, all three of them have their own dedicated IP address. And that's for all the way through for all of your CPAC stations.
We have a file that has the IP
And we
address.
have, yes, exactly. Yeah, we have the file, a file, and that, I don't have it in this document because this document is a generic document. But the thumb drive I'm going to get to Alan is going to have all the IP addresses. It's going to have the barcode stamp for configuring this. It's going to have this document, and then there's some other troubleshooting documents that's going to be in that.
So all the IP addresses come up, or we have to upload them as we change them?
When you change out a device, you actually need to turn the station off, pull that device out, to program the new device, and then put it in. Because you got to be careful when changing out the device. The switches will see a different IP and see a different MAC, but there's a special address in there. And if you do that IP address, it may go, oh, there's a conflict. And even though it's a short period of time, the switches have I think you guys are set like an hour or something. I've had them where it's taken an hour once it sees a conflict on the port before it re-enables that port again. And so, and that's just a warning. That's why anytime you're going to change IP addresses, power the thing down. Just get it so it's offline, and that way the switches will clear out and allow you to change. And I've just had problems going from site to site with that.
So it's a brand new IP address.
Well, no, it's going to be the same. That's the problem.
stay
It's the
the
same exact IP address, but the switches potentially see that the MAC address is different,
Right.
but it says, oh, same IP address. There's a problem, and so it's just
We have to communicate with you.
a clarity to make sure
We have a
that
list of
you
what
don't have that hiccup, because it's hard as hell. When that happens,
We tell them what it is.
down here you can't see that the switch locked off the port without having you guys going in and looking, going, oh, hey, our port says there's a conflict here.
Do we need the software to configure the IP on that?
No. Oh yeah, sorry. That one there is free, and so that's something I will be including in that USB drive. That's why I want to have your laptop here, so
Do you have to plug it in from here, or you can go through the server?
No, you actually bring your laptop to have your new piece. You can be sitting on your desk. If you know you're replacing this one here, you can be on your desk, plug the RTS box in to power, plug the network cable into your laptop, pull up the port vision for that device, and you can then program it right there on your desk. You don't have to be here to do that.
So is there a way to look at the old one? Let's say someone did change
Yep.
it
You can come out
without
here.
nobody knowing. How would we know?
You come unplug the device here, plug it into your laptop, bring up port vision,
And see if it matches the
and
station.
it'll bring up this device, and then you can see, oh, hey, here's all the settings for it. And that is I don't have because here on page 7, this is where it's talking about use port vision, and that's the software that you use, and then this goes through the steps to program it. And so
That would be you guys, right?
We have all the IP information, so I mean, we could just, if you have an issue, you can just let me know and I can do it.
yeah, and that's the thing is going between different customers. Their division line for that varies, and so that's why we don't get too involved in it. We just say, here's what you need to do, and then we leave it up to whether IT does it or whether maintenance does it.
We would just need the software, but you're gonna get that to us?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you go over the tag lights and
Yeah.
exactly what the different functions are? And when you log in, when you try to scan, if it says 000, what it means?
Okay. Well, let's go through all the hardware first, and then we'll do that. And so so that we kind of quickly discussed about the RTS box. Then for the Redworks box, that's what we can program it. It is strictly what we call a telnet session, and it's a program that's on all your laptops, or it needs to be enabled, I guess turned on. But then you just log into that, and in the troubleshooting guide that we have, it goes through each step. I've got it worded in here, but it shows pictures of each step so you can see the screen, so what they look like when you go through and program. But the only thing you do is set the IP address.
I've actually done that. You need a crossover cable as well, so if you have to do that, you might want to tell me because I have that.
Yeah, and it depends on your
So that's another third party, because we changed the MAC address physically.
well, the IP, yeah.
Right.
When we change them out, but then there's another step, correct?
It's that black box.
Yeah, this
That
one.
one you actually have to come in with your laptop and a crossover cable and reset it and then change it manually.
And it depends on the manufacturer of the laptop. Like we use all Dell in our company, and so their plug on their laptops are all auto switching. So we just have a standard cable. But some laptops don't do that, so you need to have a crossover cable for it.
Oh, that cable.
That's why the other day when I was in here working on those, that's what I was doing was resetting those. So they should be, as far as I know, if you did everything, they all should be correct right now.
And so, yeah, and that's the big part, is when you're doing troubleshooting, moving, you got a problem here, and you go, oh, well, I know this station over here is working, so I grab that, bring it over here. That's a big no-no. In regards to that one over there is programmed for that station. We talk to that knowing exactly where it's at, and if you move it here, now we think this station is that station. And so when you're trying to get something back up, it's always best to grab a controller out of your spares and bring it over and plug it in and program it and bring it up that way. And then on this controller, you've got your cables here. Those cables are one for every row here and these ones here. So you have a total of 9 cables coming in. And you're going to have 9 cables on this one, and you'll have over on the new stations, you'll have 9 cables also. So between the stations, just because this is old, they still function exactly the same.
Are the cables specific, or is it just an Ethernet cable?
No, they're not. They look like Ethernet cables, but they are not.
They're specific. Okay.
Yeah, they are. When you look at them, you can see here, they are a flat ribbon cable, and so the wires are actually straight through. Where an Ethernet cable, they actually flip a couple of the pairs, and that wreaks havoc on these. These do not like doing that. And so you always want to be using that flat cable.
Now, are the cables interchangeable? So if I want to change that one to that one, I just gotta change the bottom to change the top.
Yeah, in theory, yeah, you can. I mean, this cable here won't stretch up to here.
No, I'm saying if I wanted to use that cable for that one and that cable for that one, they're interchangeable, or is one for?
Yeah, and yeah, there's nothing specific other than length.
Gotcha.
Other than length on them. And the same goes for the ports down here. What we do is we try to keep the left side on one bank, the right side on the other bank, and then this one goes to whichever one. but it's not, on those ports, they're not specific. You can put them anywhere. We just try to divide them. Because the 2 ports on here, that top row is what we call, is one actual port. It's actually one driver for it. And then the row below it is a second driver. And so if you may have, something may blow up on this one, it will only take out that top, if it just plugged in the top row, it would take out that top row. And so that side would still be working. And so that's
why you don't mix them. Gotcha. So
yeah, we try and keep it so that way it makes it easier for debugging. Because if you end up having them all crisscrossed around, you're like, well, this one's working, but that one's not, that one's working. And where if you keep them all to one side, then when you see a problem, you can easily go do that. Then, and like I was saying, on these ports here, I can actually take this out, plug that in there. Yeah, you saw how it went up, came up, and back, and so it's up and running now. Ideally, you don't want to do it when it's live. You want to power it down and power it back up. But for testing and debugging, this is okay. It's just when you're all done, go ahead, power the system down, and bring it back up.
Is there a specific way to power it down, or just unplug it?
Unplug it, plug it back in. These ones here didn't have the breakers on them, like we did on the new ones. The new ones have a breaker inside. So you got a circuit breaker, you just go put that circuit breaker on, turn it on. And like we said, the only caveat with that we want you to make sure nobody's doing something on the station at that moment. And when I say at that moment, I mean they're not actually scanning something or they're pushing buttons. You want to tell them, hey, can you log off and just step back while I power cycle this off? And boom, they'll power cycle back on, and it should be up and running in about 5 minutes. Sorry. Kermit is like, hello, that's my phone. And the same thing for here. You've got that cable that we showed down here, it comes up and plugs into the side here. Then you have cables that comes out of this and daisy chain across. There's nothing specific about those cables. They're just shorter than this cable. And so if you were having a problem and you're like, well, these taps down here aren't working, and you suspected that cable, you can pull that cable out, move it here, or move it up here, and it wouldn't matter. You'd be able to see where the problem is going, if it was truly that cable. Yeah. And so, and that's throughout this whole thing. All of them the same. On all those stations, even on the news stations, they are the same thing. It's the same cables, it's just, those are newer. The back off down here at the bottom, this part here, all it does is it turns on the LED light on the inside, turns on the beacon, and tells the index belt to run. That is all that does down there.
Which one tells the index belt to run?
It is going to be this one here, this module here. So you've got, this is the power, this is the brain, what we call the bus coupler. This is power, putting 24 volts in. Then you've got an input module that has the 2 sensors on it. And it also has an input from the index belt saying that the motor's running on it. Then the next module is an output module that's 24 volt output, and it will turn on the beacon and it sends a signal to the index belt to run. And that's where that part ends. Then these 2 input modules here, these are all fused. Where you see the orange tabs, those are fused. You just So when that fuse blows, you're going to see a red light.
Got it.
Doesn't matter whether it's the 2412,
We've seen that.
you'll see that. And it's just a 5x20. And it's like I think it's like a 6.2 amp. And so this one here covers the left station. This one covers the right station.
So if it's not communicating with the index belt,
Nope.
Or-
All these. So this happens here. On this controller, the only communication is either on or off. It's either putting power out or not putting power out.
no, for the index belt, that one card. So is there an indication on there where it's telling me I'm not talking to the index belt? Will it light up or will
Well, when we tell the index belt to run, you'll see a red light come on here. That's saying that we told the module to turn on. And so if that doesn't ever come on, that index belt will never come on. Now these ones here, they're all, if you actually look at, you can see on the wiring, all the wiring is identical. And so it's all a sequence. Bing, 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 bing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're all, so that would be A, B, C, D for the left side. Then A, B, C, D row for the right side.
Got it. So the first A, B, C, D, the first.
Now these first two here, that's input. All it has in it is the sensors up here. That's the banner sensors.
Got it.
It has those two banners. So here, watch the light.
Got it.
And it's the same for the other one.
Can you explain the first one, what the lights mean?
On this one,
Yeah. And whether if they flicker or turn on or off,
Okay.
whether that indicates any
when
kind of fault?
they're flickering, as long as they're green, when they're flickering, you're seeing it's communication with this device. One that we're connected and one that we are talking, telling it to go. And how we communicate with this is the server is talking to it every 1/10 of a second. It's sending commands to it, and then it's responding back to the server every 1/10 of a second. And one of them says that you got a network connection. So the top two lights went out. And what it is if you watch it here once I plug this back in.
I heard the phrase dog leg or something like that, or
Now,
is that anything?
there you go. Okay. Now you see here? Now you can see that blinks. And that's going to change a little bit once it actually makes a connection to the server. Because one it's saying that it's now connected to the network, and then one is saying, hey, I'm now talking to the server. And then all these modules are replaceable. They are brain dead. They don't have any information stored in them. So you don't have to program them. The only one you program is this one here. And there's two items. There's the IP address that you put in and the watchdog timer setting.
Watchdog, that's right.
And that you do, and the reason for the watchdog timer is because we have that index belt connected to it. If we lose network connection here for more than 15 seconds, it turns off all outputs. And it's just a safety feature in there, but it will flash up here with the red dot saying that the watchdog timer was activated. But our system, if we see the watchdog timer get activated when we're connected, we will tell it to reset that watchdog timer.
Automatically or?
Yeah, automatically, because that means we're connected.
Okay.
And so as long as we're connected, that watchdog timer is only for when we lose network connection.
Now the physical, the toggles at the on the back off.
Yeah, that's the first. So if you look at this one, this is a
This one with
this
red
is a
ones and there's one with blue ones.
this is a BK 9000. What we have over there is a BK 9050, and so this module looks slightly different, and those dip switches look slightly different because here you have a bank of 10 switches, and over there on the BK 9050 you have a bank of 8 and a bank of 2.
Now are those interchangeable? The
Yeah.
9050, I could put one of those on that one?
Yeah, it's just a different version, that's all.
What about the dip switches?
The dip switches, they look separate, but they all have the same quantity. It's 10 and 10, it's just that they separated them. And I'll show you when we're over there. But those first 8 switches is what tells it the last octet of the IP address. And the last octet of the IP address is, your IP address, you have the 4 segments, and then the last one is the last octet. The first 3 are actually, you have to program. That's why you were talking about the KS2000 software, because you need that to program those modules.
So I have a question. You have a file here. This is all the IP addresses of these systems. So I know the light controller is that box there.
The serial is the RTS box, so the is the backup.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
So these are the IP addresses for those.
Yeah.
And then
And
we
you
follow
should
these
have-
instructions on how to fix it.
Yeah, and you should have, if that's the current file, you should have, these should be like the old IP addresses, and then those should be the new subnet IP addresses.
There's like 2 different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because it was easier to just add that subnet, move it from LA to here,
Yeah.
as opposed to us going through and reprogramming every device.
Yeah.
So with these, with these modules, like I said, they can be, it's not a recommendation, but the way Beckhoff builds their modules, they are protected forward, backward, overcurrent, undercurrent, and so you should be able to come in, and I can literally, I can pull out the module, and then I suggest, then what you do is you put the new module in. If this one went bad, you put the new one in, and then you transfer one wire at a time. That way they don't get crisscross.
So what does that red light mean right now?
That is meaning that it sees an error with the K-bus. There's a bus with these terminals on it, and that's how it communicates from here across to all these devices.
So if it was moved slightly, it would do that.
Yes, and that's the key thing in debugging is if you see this light blinking, but yet everything looks okay, it's saying one of them may have come loose, and they're hard to see, and so you just go through, you pull them out, reset them, and then power it off, power it back on, and you're good to go. And now this device here, the end one, it is a special device. It has what they call a terminating resistor in it. And so it is what tells it that it's at the end of the line. And see, as soon as it goes through. And our software is also looking at that for those errors, and it's telling the bus coupler to reset. And then
I got an email from Vargo saying that, hey, this was off. I didn't know.
Yeah. So, the power supplies. This one here, obviously, we used to just have these 2 power supplies here. And then when you did the replacement of this new LC, that's the new power supply that was for the LC that you have to put in. Because I bet we can probably go find a couple stations that have that old box in it. And that's really when it comes down to it, that's the crux of it. These guys here, they're brain dead too. We don't program them or anything. But you can put it in diagnostic mode here, or you can put it in diagnostic mode down here.
How do you do it down there?
Down there, there's a little itty bitty button, a hole here. Big enough, just big enough for your fingers to sit in, right next to the LED. And you push it for 5 seconds. And as soon as it pops up, you take your finger off. Because if you go 15 to 20 seconds, it's going to reset the LC and you're going to have to reprogram it. And that's a pain.
What does the diagnostic mode tell you besides that all the buttons are working?
That's really what it does. Here, I'll put it in here. And I normally go to, so you've got the red and green here. It changes the different diagnostic level. I put it on 5 because that 5 is where it cycles through every one of the sequences. But you can go here and you can test your buttons. It will tell you what button was pushed, and it also will blank. And so that's the way for you to be able to validate, hey, this tag's working or not working.
Now, if it's not talking to it, or if on diagnostic mode they all light up, but when it comes down to it and I scan an item and nothing shows up on there,
I won't say absolutely that it's not here or there, but usually if you scan an item, this is where it gets complicated. It's not when you scan something here and this beeps, that doesn't mean necessarily that the server got that message. And that's usually the biggest case of why these don't light up, is it did not get the message from here saying that, hey, here's the item number, what do you want me to do with it? If it doesn't get that message, it's not going to know to send something back to display. And that's where we have a lot of times, we'll get in diagnostic and we'll have you guys we'll restart the service for the RTS box, is what we'll do. Because for some reason that one pumps. Or we'll have to recharge the Redworks driver because it pumps. And so that's where it gets kind of gray and determining, okay, I've done everything I can on this station to verify that the hardware is working. Now we need to escalate it to the next level. Maybe get Kofi support involved. Maybe get IT involved to see, hey, do we actually have a network connection? And that's where it's just going through knowing the hardware. First learning all the steps to diagnosing it, and going through every piece saying, okay, I believe that it's fully functioning to the best of my ability. And then at that point you escalate it to the next level.
Is there a certain reset we can do that resets them all to?
Oh, these?
Yeah, or they don't need to be reset.
Power.
Off and on?
Power cycle.
Really?
Like I said, these are dumb. They don't have any memory, they don't have any brain. And so that is our number one thing. If you see something stuck, you're like, dang it, what's going on? Power cycle. And let it come back up. And then go over and check again. Now if it's still sticking and not doing what you need, okay, now you need to go further in to figure out, is it here? Is it here? Is it one of these components?